I get excited thinking about A Christmas Carol, written in the 1800s by Charles Dickens. Dickens was a devout Christian, and he wrote A Christmas Carol as a parable. It's a parable about a man moving from selfishness to selflessness. Scrooge is someone that we all enjoy watching. He starts off as miserable and cold-hearted, closed off from humanity, crying out around him. And we go through the story and we watch what is going on. I'm very excited this year that we're presenting the reading of A Christmas Carol in 5 staves over the 4 weeks of Advent and then on Christmas. And each stave, or each of the 5 parts of this reading, is being done by a parishioner. I hope you will enjoy the reading. I'm really looking forward to the first stave this evening, to getting acquainted with Ebenezer Scrooge. And if you enjoy the reading, you're most welcome to make an e-transfer to support our parish blessing box. We know there's a lot of need right now in this world, just as there was in London in the 1800s. This is a challenging year for everyone, but we're still going to come together, even if this year we're not able to do the reading in the church, but we're able to do it through our live streaming through a digital way. I thank you for watching it. May the lessons we learn from A Christmas Carol, the lessons of transformation and reaching out in the name of God to be truly kind and compassionate in this world which needs us to be kind and compassionate, is a gripping story. And I can't wait. Thank you very much and enjoy.
Stave 1, Marley's Ghost. Marley was dead to begin with. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, and Scrooge. Scrooge and he were partners for many years. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name, and there it stood above the warehouse door, Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people new to the business called him Scrooge, sometimes Marley, but he answered to both names. It was all the same to him. Tight-fisted Scrooge, grasping, covetous, hard as flint, secret and solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old features, his pointed nose, his thin blue lips, and grated his voice. Nobody ever stopped him with a gladsome, "How are you?" No beggars implored him, or children asked him what o'clock it was. Even the blind men's dogs appeared to know him and would tug their masters in doorways and up courts. But it was the very thing he liked, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance. Christmas Eve, and old Scrooge sat in his counting house with the door open, so that he might keep an eye on his clerk, who, in a dismal little cell beyond, was copying letters. It was cold, biting, and the fog poured in through every chink and keyhole. Scrooge had a small fire, but the clerk in his comforter tried to warm himself at the candle, and not being a man of imagination, he failed. "A Merry Christmas, Uncle!" It was the cheerful voice of Scrooge's nephew. With rapid walking in the fog and frost, he was all aglow, ruddy and handsome. "Bah!" said Scrooge. "Humbug!" "Uncle," pleaded the nephew. "Nephew," returned the uncle, "keep Christmas in your own way, and let me keep Christmas in mine, by leaving it alone. Much good it's ever done you." "There are many things from which I have derived good, uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket. But I believe it has done me good, and will do me good. And I say, God bless it." The clerk in the cell involuntarily applauded. "Let me hear another sound from you," said Scrooge, "and you'll spend Christmas by losing your situation." "Don't be angry, uncle," said the nephew. "I ask nothing of you. Why cannot we be friends?" "Good afternoon," said Scrooge. "I'm sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute, but a Merry Christmas, uncle, and a Happy New Year." The clerk, in letting out Scrooge's nephew, let in two portly gentlemen, pleasant to behold. "At this festive season, Mr. Scrooge," said one of them, "a few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to make some provision for the poor, who suffer greatly at the present time. What shall we put you down for?" "Nothing." "Are there no prisons and union workhouses?" demanded Scrooge. "There are," returned the gentleman. "I wish I could say there were not. Many can't go there, and many would rather die." "If they would rather die," said Scrooge, "they had better do it, and decrease the surplus population." Seeing clearly that it would be useless, the gentleman withdrew. Scrooge resumed his labors with an improved opinion of himself. At length the hour of shutting up arrived. "You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose," said Scrooge. "Be here all the earlier the next morning." The clerk promised he would, and the office was closed in a twinkling, and the clerk ran home as hard as he could pelt. Scrooge took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern, and, having read all the newspapers, went home to bed. He lived in a gloomy suite of rooms that had once belonged to his deceased partner, in a lowering pile of buildings up a yard. Nobody lived in it but Scrooge, the other rooms being all let out as offices. Now, it is a fact that there was nothing at all particular about the knocker on the door, except it was very large. Scrooge had seen it night and morning during his whole residence in that place. Then let any man explain, if he can, how it happened that Scrooge, having his key in the lock, saw in the knocker, without its going through any process of change, not a knocker, but Marley's face. As Scrooge looked fixedly at this phenomenon, it was a knocker again. To say he was not startled, or that his blood was not conscious of a terrible sensation, would be untrue. But he sturdily turned the key, walked in, and lighted his candle. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes, and walking across the hall, he went up the stairs. But before he shut his heavy door, he walked through all his rooms to see that all was right. He had just enough recollection of Marley's face to desire to do that. Quite satisfied, he took off his cravat and put on his nightcap and sat down before the fire. "Humbug," said Scrooge as he sat down. As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened to rest upon a bell, a disused bell, that hung in the room and communicated with the highest story of the building. It was with great, inexplicable dread that, as he looked, he saw this bell begin to swing. It swung so softly in the outset that it scarcely made a sound. But soon it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house. This might have lasted half a minute. Then the bells ceased as they had begun, together. They were succeeded by a clanking noise, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar. Scrooge then remembered to have heard that ghosts in haunted houses were described as dragging chains. The cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and then he heard the noise coming up the stairs, straight towards his door. "It's humbug still," said Scrooge. "I won't believe it." His color changed when, without a pause, it came on through the heavy door, and passed into the room before his eyes. The same face, Marley, in his pigtail and usual waistcoat. The chain he drew was clasped about his middle, and it was made of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought in steel. His body was transparent, and though Scrooge looked the phantom through and through, he was still incredulous, and fought against his senses. "Who are you?" said Scrooge. "Ask me who I was. In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley." "You won't believe in me," observed the ghost. "Why do you doubt your senses?" "Because," said Scrooge, "a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato." At this, the spirit raised a frightful cry and shook his chain with such a dismal and appalling noise that Scrooge held on tight to his chair to save himself from falling into a swoon. But how much greater was his horror when, the phantom taking off the bandage round its head, its lower jaw dropped down upon his chest. Scrooge fell upon his knees. "Mercy," he said, "dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me?" "It is required of every man," the ghost returned, "that if the spirit does not go forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is doomed to wander through the world and witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth, and turn to happiness." Again the spectre raised a cry, and shook its chains, and wrung its shadowy hands. "You are fettered," said Scrooge, trembling. "I wear the chain I forged in life," replied the ghost. "I made it, link by link, and of my own free will I wore it. Is its pattern strange to you?" "Jacob," Scrooge said imploringly, "old Jacob Marley, speak comfort to me, Jacob." "I have none to give," the ghost replied. "At this time of the year," said the spectre, "I suffer most. Why did I walk through crowds of fellow beings with my eyes turned down, and never raise them to that blessed star which led the wise men to a poor abode? Were there no poor homes to which its light would have conducted me?" "Hear me," cried the ghost. My time is nearly done. I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and a hope of escaping my fate. You will be haunted by 3 spirits. Expect the first tomorrow when the bell tolls 1. Look to see me no more, and look that for your own sake you remember what has passed between us. The apparition walked backward from him, and at every step it took, the window raised itself a little, so that when the spectre reached it, it was wide open. The air was filled with phantoms, wandering in reckless haste and moaning as they went. The spectre, after listening for a moment, joined in the mournful dirge and floated out into the bleak, dark night.
Hello, my name is Daniel here at the editing desk. Thank you for watching the first stave of A Christmas Carol. We'll be doing this every week. Each stave read by a different parishioner at St. Paul's Anglican, Thunder Bay. If you enjoy this, please like and subscribe to the channel and you'll get notified when the next parts come online. Also, click the link in the description. It'll take you to our website, and you can consider supporting our Blessing Box program, which is a great endeavor that we've got going on that supports members of our community with some food and much needed supplies. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.